Okay, Mansi. Hopefully this time it'll all work. Let's go. Um, Let me post this on my Facebook so people can see. Okay. Okay, so now we have at least some 5 people who are watching. So let's see if more people join. Okay, so now we have at least 5 who are watching. Let's see if more people join. Thanks, guys, for joining. This is the first time we are doing YouTube, so I don't know whether anybody has done or participated in YouTube, this Hangout. So it's interesting to know all these kind of different platforms. I was so comfortable in doing Facebook Live, and I know I can just switch on my phone, keep it in my what is it called tripod, smaller one, and then I just go on right on air for any topic these days. Suddenly, somebody suggested that you could actually do, and there have been people who have been asking this question that can we just get a chance to speak with people who are either studying now or who are alums. So that's when I said, okay, we'll try explore some other. And Facebook here, the difficulty is that I can do it with only 1%, and I can do it only with people who have iPhone. Right, so it's a two split screen, and that's all. There's no more additions to it. So I had that constraint to play around with. But now somebody educated me on this platform saying, oh, you could have like 20 people and we could speak. Hopefully This I think the platform is working now. We need to get people to join. I see people joining. So let's just say, can you say if you are around? Oh, so Varun is also online. Okay, so let me just tag him. Varun. And it's interesting, right? We are doing so at least it looks interesting for me. We are doing a chat here, and then it's I have to see for the questions. I have to go to the YouTube page to look at the questions. In Facebook, it was convenient, right? I was just doing one. I was hands free, seeing the questions and doing. Now I have to do this. Go to the other window and look for questions. Hey, Varun. Thanks, Varun for joining.
I think
Hey, ha, Varun. Yeah. So we have everybody, and I see people joining in the session also. I have like 16 people seeing it now. So let's give a minute or two, and then we'll start getting people to ask questions, so you guys can take speak about what I said you can start with. But one of you could have emailed me saying that the daylight savings changed, and this is every time. Yeah, this is not the first time. Like third or the in last 3-4 years, 3 or 4 things this has happened. But my calendar even should have been in the same time, right? I think calendar should be fixing all that.
I also figured out when I got up at an absurdly early time.
Yeah. Okay, so I see some people. Hello, Sarthak. Thanks for joining again, Sarthak. We're just using a new platform, so we're trying to figure out the people who are going to speak. Students, everybody's here. So hey, Dheeraj. I see Dheeraj also, and I see some 18, 19 people on the call. So I will leave. I'll not bother about everybody saying hello and saying, but I hope that you're here to listen about the graduate school admissions. So thanks guys for joining. For people who are actually with me, which is Amod, Mansi, Rohan, Sarana, Varun, and Vedant. These are all different parts of the US. And I just learned that it's also daylight savings time change in the US. So some people must have gotten up very early. Thanks for that. So what we'll do is we'll get you guys to speak for a minute or two. Just go over your background. What are you doing in the US now and grad school? Some of you are current students, some of you are alums, so we can see how. Tell us about high-level things or what you want to share with the people who are applying, and then we can take it forward from there. Amod, why don't you start, Amod? That's the order I see, so Amod, why don't you start?
Sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Amod, and I graduated from Triple ID Delhi in 2017. And right after, I joined the master's program at University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. And so now so this is my third semester here now, and I work in systems and networking, more specifically in mobile computing and wireless networking. So around the area of IoT, that's the area that I'm working in. Um, and I was interning with Amazon Lab 126 this summer, and that's what I'll be joining full time next year. And that's it. Or should I also talk about the admissions right now?
Yeah. Just say a few things about what do you think is the key things that people applying in mind according to you?
So I think two things. I think the first thing is that we should accept the fact that admissions is very random. Like it's not, it does not follow any kind of any kind of pattern to it. So expect to apply in like diverse kind of schools. Do not go for like top 10 schools. It usually doesn't work out because like no one knows how admissions work. We're just trying to extrapolate based on the people that we know. So that's first thing. Apply to schools as diverse as possible. And the second is that admissions usually take like a lot of time. Do not leave everything to the end. It usually is a very exhausting and it's a pretty painful process, like to go through for like those 3 stressful months. So I would suggest starting as early as possible, especially with your exams and the SOP.
Okay, cool. Amod, starting early. Okay, so let's go to Mansi.
Hi, my name is Mansi. I graduated this year from Triple IT Delhi in computer science, and currently I'm pursuing my first year at UMD, Masters in Computer Science. It's my first semester. My main interests are NLP and machine learning and online social media analysis. So, my general advice would be for master's students, especially, it's okay if you don't have any research paper. It's not necessary to have a research publication to apply for master's. A lot of universities prefer that, but it's not a mandatory requirement. So, don't hesitate in applying to schools just because you don't have any publication yet. Second, it's a very good idea to mention about a professor's research work, particularly if you are interested in applying or in working with a particular prof or lab. Generally, they do care about this, especially at research universities. Third would be don't keep yourself too constrained with a particular field when you are applying for masters in computer science. Unless it's a specialization course, don't restrict yourself too much in SOP with a particular domain. Be open for experimenting in other fields as well. And adding to what Amod said, you will get unexpected rejects and unexpected accepts. So it's fine. Application process is very random. Talk to students from the schools you're applying to, get to know about the culture, and it should be fine.
Cool. That's an important point, Mansi, that people get too worried about papers. So I think extremely important point that students should not get too panicked about, oh, I don't have a paper. Will I get admitted to good schools? Yeah, Rohan. Hey, Rohan. You're on mute.
Sorry,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. Hey, I'm Rohan. I graduated from Triple IT Delhi, majoring in computer science since 2016. Right after school, I went to Georgia Tech, majored in human-computer interaction there. Last year, I was during grad school. I interned at Yahoo as a PM for about 8 months in the experimental products team, and now I'm a product manager at Yelp in the metrics and experimentation team. My two primary takeaways from being involved with this entire admissions process, as everyone else mentioned, number one, start early, start as early as possible. It takes a lot more time than you think it does. And secondly, develop as many relationships as you can. Like recommendations will get you to schools. Recommendations probably have the highest weightage, in my opinion, from whatever I've seen. If you can, they matter a lot. They change a yes, they change a no to a yes.
So he's just endorsing, so to say, be good to professors, be good to people.
Totally. Be good to professors. Have actually also to add something there. Have try to get at least 2 out of 3 recommendations with people you spend at least 2 to 3 years with. Like just working with people for 2 to 3 months and getting recommendations probably doesn't get you as rich a recommendation because they can't speak as much about you either. Having long-term relationships really helps. Yeah.
Cool. So that's good. That's good. Hey, Ashwin, thanks for joining. So Ashwin is also one of the earlier, so to say, he was alum earlier, and then he worked for a startup. Now he's doing PhD. So his story will be slightly different. Arun, we're just going over the people who for 2 minutes introducing, saying your background and your, so to say, important aspects of getting admission. So why don't you give your story, which is the PhD story also?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, no, I mean, I think I cut the cake for Peacock's first birthday, so it's been a while. But yeah.
Yeah, when I said alum also in the grad school alum, I meant, yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. So I'm Ashwin. I finished my undergrad at VIT University in 2012. In the last semester, over there, I worked with PK. So that's how I got to know him. Then I went to Arizona State for my master's in computer science. And then I worked at a startup for 3 years before switching over to a PhD at the University of Michigan. I'm doing a PhD in information. So I think one key takeaway for me is that don't be at least restricted in looking for just like computer science schools or specific degrees. Like there might be cases where, like in my case, I was interested in working on something to do with social media and possibly mixed methods, like applying both qualitative and quantitative approaches. And for those sort of works, it's like you can go to an information school, you can go to a human-centered computing group, you can go to human-centered design and engineering, you can go to societal computing. So there are lots of different degrees out there that I didn't realize when I was starting off. When I applied to my master's, I didn't really think much about it. I didn't know. So I think taking some time to actually explore some of these other degrees, which might actually be more in sync with what you want to do, I think that will be. I think that's important. It's something that I've learned. Also, I think to the point of recommendations, I think in my case, like I worked with PK for only a few months, and like I agree, like the recommendations are super useful. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to have long-term, like super, like 2-year-old relationships. I think that's hard to do unless the person is in close proximity. But even as long as the work that you've done is good, I think it's still useful. Like for example, for my PhD, I did get recommendations from PK, and I worked with him like for 5 years ago, and it was still useful, and I was quoted about it once I joined this institution. So yeah, but obviously keep in touch with folks that you would like to get recommendation letters from. So yeah.
Cool. So I think there was some background that I did to check for people who can join this call. So Ashwin, Saravana, and Varun fall into that category, which is that we did not want to have just the triple IT mafia giving inputs or sharing their thoughts. It may or may not be applicable to all students. So that's when I thought that we should actually get some people who are not from triple IT, but are doing super exciting things right now and gone through the process in recent or in sometimes past. Thanks, Ashwin. Sarvana.
So my name is Sarvana. I'm a second-year master's student at the Ohio State University, and I work with Dr. Srinivasan Parthasarathy on machine learning for large networks. So I worked with Precog and PK for about 1 year, starting my summer of the final year up to I think the summer after I finished college. I originally graduated from College of Engineering Gindi in Chennai, and I think my two key takeaways would be that once you have your master's packet ready, like you've written your SOP, you have your GRE, and you've asked your recommenders for their letters, send your master's packet to as many people as possible and get as much feedback as you can, because that definitely they really know what to look for, what to change, and what exactly you're doing wrong, especially in your SOP. Because I remember that the final draft that I submitted was vastly different from the first draft that I had written. So go through multiple drafts, and that's where starting early really helps. And the second thing is that when you start early, make sure you write your GRE really early, because it can go either ways. It totally depends on like your preparation. It depends on like what state of mind you're in that day. So it can go either ways. So start right really early so that you have a chance to do it again just in case you mess it up.
Yeah, cool. So Varun.
Hey guys, I'm Varun. I graduated from NIT Trichy in 2017, and I came to my master's at Carnegie Mellon University. My program is the Master's in Intelligent Information Systems that focuses mainly on machine learning and NLP. So it's a specialized degree, and I worked with PK during my 2016 summer internship and continued to work with him remotely. So if you'd ask me about what helped me the most during my application, it was that one of the most famous theories that were there, that all of your application materials, the huge number of things that they ask, can be put into three buckets. One is your grades bucket, and that consists of your grades, GRE, and TOEFL scores. Your next one is your experience bucket, that either consists of work experience and research experience. And your third bucket is your SOP and your LOR. So usually it's considered that having any two of these strong helps you for whatever you're trying to for whichever school you're trying to target. So that way, I'd say that since there are varied number of profiles that are there, instead of saying that there's no sure shot formula for saying that this is the best way to get to it, but trying to find out which out of these two are the strongest for you, and trying to move your application and motivate what you want to achieve using these helps a lot.
Okay, cool. So Vedant is also of the category of Ashwin, who is moved from undergrad, masters, and then now a PhD. So there are two PhD students. There is one alum, four current students, all kinds of backgrounds. Very nice, very nice. Vedant, go on, Vedant.
Okay. Hey everyone, I'm Vedant. So yeah, I also graduated from Triple IT in 2016, and then I did my MS at CI in Georgia Tech. Rohan and I went there together. I'm still here. I'm doing my PhD in Georgia Tech. I work on it's an intersection between ubiquitous sensing and social well-being. So actually, the points that I kind of have somewhat summarized all the things that everyone else have said already. So one thing that first I want to say is just about the randomness, and the thing is, like, it's true. There is. I mean, the process is quite arbitrary. What you can do is maximize your chances, right? And every school has different bins for different kind of people they want. For example, when I was applying that time, one thing that I was wondering is, should I come straight from undergrad or should I go and get some work experience and then do it? And I know that a lot of people sometimes don't apply because they don't have a paper, or they don't have work ex, or they don't have something. But the truth is, if you try to understand the admission process of your particular program, you'll figure out that in some schools it's totally okay to go without any papers. In certain programs it's okay to have no experience, and sometimes they actually proportion their students like that. They'll have some set of people with papers, they'll have some set of people with experience, they'll have some set of people with without any work ex. So you can try to leverage that. The next thing is about just the LORs, and I think kind of going back to what Rohan was saying, I think it's not just about how much time you sort of spend with them, but I've really seen, like, because I've gone through the process twice, and I feel like bottom line, it boils down to how much trust you have between yourself and the person who's recommending you, and try to be really clear if that person can give you a good recommendation. Have that honest conversation and get a good recommendation. Try to talk through that this is where you want to apply, this is things you want to do, and then see if the recommendation can be good or not. Don't force a recommendation from somebody who's big but might not be able to write a good recommendation for you. And I think the last thing that I have is just about just the SOP. I think SOP is honestly the only thing you can really change. That's how I see it, because everything else is sort of fixed, right? Your marks are fixed, whatever someone's going to write about you is fixed, everything's sort of fixed. The SOP is that one thing that's sort of in your hands. Whether or not someone's going to read it is a very different thing, but just in the off chance somebody does read it, what you do want to do is get a lot of feedback. So float it out to as many people. If you don't know how to start from blank page, get a template SOP and start. But that is the first thing you need to just start off on, because if you let that be for the end, you'll struggle a lot. So, yeah.
Hey, Vedant, thanks. Yeah. So we have some specific questions. I will let you, if you want, you can raise your hands and we can answer. But I'm going to read, let's take one or two questions and then we can take some generic questions about admission, and we can come back to, it's nice about 37, 38 people are watching it now. Okay, cool. So there's a question from Dheeraj. Should we mention field of research interest or a particular professor in the application, even if the MS isn't a research degree? Anybody wants to take specifically? Yeah, Sarona.
So my take on this is that I would name specific research groups and specific kind of work that the school is doing instead of actual professors. Because I remember that I once named a professor that one of my collaborators was working with, and it turns out that when I actually got the admit, the professor had moved. And when you name a professor, it becomes whether that professor likes you or not, whether it's a lot of things. So you can it shows you've done the research when you can talk about specific research groups, specific work that the school has done. But yeah, I think the
So, Varun, I thought you also raised your hand. You can give. So, the way I'm going to moderate or have this discussion is that even though I have my own inputs, I'm going to stay away from it. Just going to get, because I think the point was to get you guys answer these questions. So I will push it all questions to back to you guys. Yeah, Varun, I know you wanted to answer. Go ahead with this research group and professor name in the SOP.
Yeah, so that way, I think that I was going to say the same point as Sarvana actually, so I was going to agree with that, because the mentioning a research group and your main area of interest helps a little bit more, because although they know that it gives two things. One, it also mentions that you've done your research on the university to understand what you're interested in, what you want to work on. And it also helps them. So like Sarvana said, like in the cases where the professor is moved, or it's not possible to connect the student with that professor, it's like mentioning your main research areas of interest, although there hasn't been much research background, will help them connect you to particular professors who would be interested also.
Amod, did you have? Yeah, Amod, I know you said you want. Yeah, go ahead, take it, Amod.
Yeah, so I would say that it's definitely very important to mention professors or research groups, particularly because you need a lot of time. What happens is that your application will get redirected to some professor to review, even if it's like sometimes it's just on the border when the admissions committee can't decide. So they do give your application to different professors, and it's very important to direct your application to someone who would understand your background and your previous research work, or like whatever work you have done in the past, because a person who works in deep learning will not be able to appreciate your research experience in systems or something else. So it's very important to write professors names who work in that area at that university, so that when they get your application, they can appreciate whatever you have done. Someone from some other area might not be able to. So it's really important to mention at least 2 professor names.
So how about this, guys? I can see all of you raising hands. How about this? Let's take 3 people answer one set of questions, and we'll do some rotation, because there are more questions. Because if you take all 7 of you answering each question, then we'll be just in one question, right? If any of you have a very strong opinion, raise your hands again. We can come back to you, right? Otherwise, I'll ask the next question. Dheeraj, I hope that's you got the answer for the question that you're asking. Okay. So the next one is from Rohan Jain. He says, hey, I'm working at Microsoft currently. I wanted to know the scholarship is available for 2-year experienced students. That's his first question. Second question, I think, is more about the, so to say, expenses. Secondly, what would be the expected semester fee and living costs for colleges? Maybe let's take the example of CMU and how effectively it reduces. It's reduced by TA-ship and othership. Let's abstract the question a little bit. I think Rohan Jain, I think what I would suggest in terms of the fees and everything like that, I'm sure those information is publicly available. You could go look it up from websites of admissions. But let's talk about let's get them to speak about, so to say, the cost of living. Meaning, how does it matter if you don't have a scholarship, things like that. I think that's probably the question you're specifically looking for, because otherwise fees, is that right, guys? Fees and everything should be somewhere written online, right? We don't have to go into details of how much is the fees. Okay, now people who raised hands before and did not get the opportunity, Rohan or Vedant, if you guys want to take this one. Yeah, Rohan.
Yeah, I think extrapolating this to the whole of US is not a fair this thing. We can't probably take an example of CMU or any. It really, really varies by what part of the US you're in. Like now I'm in San Francisco and my rent is almost 2.5 times of what it was in Atlanta. So that's
there's large variance in terms of the cost of living
Cost
in
of
cities.
living,
Rohan,
yeah.
that you should, Rohan Jain, you should definitely keep that in mind. Yeah.
Yeah, CMU probably is in Pittsburgh, so the cost of living might be lower. But if you end up going to a school like Berkeley or Stanford, which is in Palo Alto or in Berkeley, you might end up spending a lot more in rent and cost of living and general things. And also in terms of TA and RShip, this also hugely varies from CMU and other schools. Like for example, at Georgia Tech was, if I remember correctly, all of our tuition fees was taken care of, and you used to receive a monthly stipend, which was a pretty if you get a TA ship or an RS ship, and they were, if you looked for it at the right places, they were abundant available. Again, going back to developing relationships, people can get you TA ships and RS ships as well. And with respect to CMU, I think specifically with respect to CMU, PK can probably comment on this better, and also other people who go to the school. But from what I've heard, they don't have enough TA ships and RS ships for master's students. I might be wrong here. But yeah, this experience completely varies from school to school. Every school has a different culture around TA ships and RS ships and how, what.
Yeah. So Rohan, let's help Rohan Jain to get some answers also, right? I think I mean, I want people to go with some specific answers. So Rohan Jain, so the point that Rohan Kathial is saying is that the cost of living is very different in different places. Opportunities for TA ship, RS ships is abundantly available if you look for whatever. And the TA ship, RS ship is also very dependent on the school that you are at, right? So when you probably are applying, when you have admissions into, or when you have the admits into 4 or 5 schools, then the question is more appropriate to ask, I guess. Okay, let's put a table, put the different cities where the schools are, put the opportunities that are available in these schools, and then make a judgment of where to go. Probably that's the what I'm getting out of what Rohan is saying. Instead of asking this question very abstractly, saying, "Oh, what do I? Is there a TA RA opportunities?" Yes, of course it is there. And on the other side, of course, it is not there also, because I know many institutes where you do TA RA-ship, or even you have to do TA-ship as part of your program. There are some schools where there is not requirement. So it's kind of all over the place in terms of, so to say, requirements and these funding that are available. Anything else, Vedant, you wanted to add? I know you raised your hands before, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, because I think somewhere in the question, even scholarships were mentioned. So yeah, the thing about scholarships is typically the scholarships that the university gives out generally do not go to international students. And if they do, those would mostly be diversity scholarships. And fortunately or unfortunately, Indians are not considered diversity anymore. So we don't generally get those either. Now, what you can do is there are certain scholarships that are global. For example, there are scholarships like Rhodes Scholarship and things like that, which are like those the cream of the crop scholarships. Those are really hard to get. But then there are things like you've got Tata, you've got I think Birla has a scholarship. Then there's Aga Khan has a different scholarship. So these are scholarships which you get in India, but typically these scholarships are also loan scholarships. So what that means is there'll be some really low interest loans, or like for example in Tata's case, I think there is no interest for the first 7 years or something. And also those would be a very small amount given what you would be expected to pay, but it is still an amount, so you can start exploring those.
Yeah, so a couple of reaction to what Vedant just now added, Rohan Jain. I hope you're getting answers to the question. So some of the fellowship that he's saying is definitely prestigious to get even when you're going from India. The Rhodes one that he mentioned, if you get it, the university will celebrate you wherever you are, right? So it is that prestigious. Even in the top 5 schools in the US, if you get a Rhodes Fellowship, the university will celebrate. It's that prestigious, right? Yeah. So Rohan Jain, I hope you got the answer for some of your questions. Okay, let's go to the next question. Abhishek Singh. He says, will there be a higher bar for MS plus PhD programs compared to MS? My ultimate goal is to get a PhD, but not sure if I should go through masters to get a better university for PhD. Did you guys get the question? So probably this is very relevant to Ashwin and Vedant because of the experience of masters and PhD. One of you can take it. Yeah, Ashwin.
Yeah, I think part of the issue is also for you to figure out if PhD is the right option for you. And for me, that was masters was a useful thing to do to understand the exact areas that I wanted to work in, and then choose if I really. So I in fact went the other way as well. So I finished my masters and then worked for a few years and then realized that I wanted to do, and I was absolutely confident of doing a PhD, and that's how I got in. So I think it also varies from person to person based on your interests. But yes, I think there is something to be said about using your master's experience to get into a better school for your PhD. Or if there are like very specific schools that you're aiming for, then I think that's definitely something that I think worked better for me. I mean, I wouldn't say better schools, but I would definitely say that you will have a clearer idea, which will get you to the schools that you want to get into. So I think that's sort of what I'd say.
Oh, that's very cool. Very cool. Yeah, Vedant.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that is that certain programs where the masters and the PhD is offered together, like it's one course that you can go through and then you can choose to extend your masters onto PhD. Typically, the admission selection process in that is a little different, because then you're being evaluated from a single pool of grad students, of which some of which are telling the university that, hey, we're going to actually research for you, right? So now they're judging you a lot more based on your research capability. What can you publish for the school? How much can you coincide with their interests and things like that? As opposed to other, for example, in Georgia Tech, even the MSCS program, it's a terminal master's. You're not expected to go on to a PhD. And in fact, going on to a PhD typically involves applying again. So there you're a distinct group where you've been evaluated separately for a master's, and then you'll be evaluated separately for a PhD. But if you're going to go into something which is going to allow you to go all the way through, for example, I think Wisconsin's MSCS program allows you to go all the way through. But there the selection criteria becomes different. So you'll have to consider that while tailoring your SOPs and things like that.
Yeah, pretty cool. Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions popping up right now, so I'm going to just make sure that we kind of move on with the questions. So I know you guys are able to see the questions. I'll just give you the link of where you can look at the questions. I'm just giving it to you guys in the chat. You can also look at the feed there. The questions are popping up in the link that I just now shared. So Abhishek Singh, I hope you got the answer for MS plus PhD, at least some idea for what these guys have experienced. Now let's go to Anubhav Sen. I think one of you, actually multiple of you said that you should review your SOP and things like that before. His question is, what is my strategy, right? SOP and others reviewed. I wouldn't want to give it done by my batchmates. So what are my thoughts? One or two of you. Sarana, I think you said to review multiple times, send it to outside. Yeah, Sarana and Varun, why don't you both take it in that order and say your suggestions on how to review?
I think that's where joining Precog really helped me, because I had a lot of people at Precog who really, reviewed my resume, like reviewed my, SOP. There were a lot of people.
Life is beyond that, Sarana. Life is, the question that we're trying to tackle is much beyond. It so happens that all of you have some connections with me, but that's where I can start, right? I cannot randomly ask for some people to join the call. But I think give some suggestions beyond how do you tackle the problem of getting reviews.
So you can reach out to your college seniors, people who have graduated from your college and are doing masters. So try to find people with the same background as you who are doing better things in life, like they're doing their masters, they're doing their PhD, and reach out to them. People are generally very, very willing to help. So one thing that people usually go out on LinkedIn and do this cold call thing where they just message people being like, I want to do a master's. Can you help me out? And I've seen a lot of people reach out to me via LinkedIn, and I've generally been available to help. So that's one thing you could do. Second thing is people who again, seniors from your own college who've done masters, they would generally be really willing to help. These are just two things that worked.
Varun.
Yeah, so my point mostly coincides with what Sarana was saying. So seniors from universities, that is, who were previous alumni in your college and who are trying to get, who have already got an MS, is probably the best source. But what I'd also suggest is when you're trying to find out people, like batchmates, if you want batchmates, then seniors, then professors, for example, I'd say try to keep it like bands, because your SOP is going to evolve over time. So each time you can't keep asking the same person again, right? So I'd say it's better to keep like a set of people, like segregate them into a set of people you want to ask for the first draft, for the second draft, and for the third draft, and so on, so that you can actually maximize the number of reviews you get for different versions also.
So for people who are listening, I just posted the link to the FAQs that I maintain. I'm actually going to add slightly complement to what these guys said, but also opposite to what particularly Sarana said, which is I generally recommend you have to get inputs from people who are like you, but I actually would recommend to take the SOP and give it to people who are not like you, right? I think that that perspective of people who are not like you, particularly people who are away from engineering, away from computer science, just helps a lot in terms of how to, because, and if they know you, they also know what kind of story you're bringing in, right? Because I think, as engineering students, as engineers, we're not the best people to write stories very well, right? We are known to put probably our head works in certain ways. So we don't actually generate good stories. We don't generate interesting ways of telling about ourselves. So I would, in addition to what Sarona and Varun said, I would say take your, so to say, documents to people who are not like you. Okay, good. So Anubhav, hopefully that helped to get a sense of your question. But next is Sarthak Kanodia. So there are a lot of programs available in a single domain. How to pinpoint the exact programs to apply? Any of you wants to take it? Yeah, Mansi. We'll keep it one answer per from now on. So then we'll rotate again because there are more questions. Yeah, Mansi.
Yeah, so I think the best way to go about it is look at the courses offered in a particular program. So I think it differs a lot with a professional master's or a research master's in terms of thesis, and in even terms of the courses offered. So, for example, in USC, there is a MSCS in data science and MSCS generally, but the preference for data science courses is being given to students who have taken MSCS in data science specialization. So I think you should first of all look at the courses offered in the program, and then maybe talk to students also pursuing the same degree in the school or your school alums, and talk to them about the opportunities offered from that degree. So whether you are interested in research or you are interested in industrial job, and how that particular program helps you get it. So, but the first way to shortlist it by with courses.
Okay. Sarthak, hopefully that gave you some idea. If you have anything more, just post your question. We'll try to take it again if there is time left. But Mandeep Singh, I think about the scholarship and RA-ship, these guys spoke. If you want to check out the video and then ask us questions, that will be okay. Okay. So Ankush Jolly, should we mention awards, honors in a SOP, even if there is a specific section for that in the application? Anybody? I think it's a quick one. So let me take it. So I think the way I would answer, Ankush, is that you should, right? The way I would, even though I said you should, but the way I would look at writing an SOP, please take a look at the for the FAQs. But the SOP should not be a replication of your CV. Right, it should. That's the key thing that you want to keep in mind at the very broad level. You want to make sure that you don't write saying, "Oh, I went to BTech at this college. I liked computer science, and the fourth year I did my BTech project. I did in this area," like that, right? Which is evidently clear on your CV. So I would recommend trying to have your SOP slightly away, but still you want to mention the good things that you've done and how is it relevant to the application that you're sending right now. Okay, Shubham Singh, for PhD application, how specific my SOP should be? Do I need to have it right down to the thesis track I'll be working, or on a general indication towards the areas I've been working in and out? Vedant, you want to take that?
Hey, so I think it. So as far as the US goes, typically most of the PhD programs are at least 5 years. So what happens in that case is that if you do become over specific, that could hurt you because ultimately all PhD applications, I think, are it's a matchmaking process between what you're interested in and what a potential advisor could be interested in. So the way the US works for this system is that in your first 2 years, you're actually sort of bouncing around a little bit. So it's entirely possible your advisors change, your tracks change, and things like that. So, which is why I would say not to be too rigid on what you want to do, but have a general area so that, like, I was always told that there should at least be two people in an institute where you want to go that could potentially be your advisor. So if one of them doesn't work out, the other one's always there. So at least keep it that broad that you can at least have one or two people and not just one person. Because if that person leaves, then your application kind of suffers too.
Ashwin, you want to add anything, Ashwin? Okay, cool. So let's move on. Shubham, I hope you got. So Shivain, should your SOP be more about your own experiences and why you are into the field you are in and did what you did, or about why you want to join the particular university? Wow, that's like a tongue twister. But essentially what the SOP should have it have more about what I already have, or should it be more about what I want? Yeah, Varun.
So for the SOP, I'd say it's a mix of both, in the sense that it should be like talking a little abstract. It should be like a story, like PK was saying. It shouldn't really be a replica of the CV, but rather it should be like a general flow of events as to what happened till now, every experience that happened in your undergraduate degree, and how that fit into what you're trying to do. And the most important part out of that will be the university which you want to join, how that piece fits into your overall goal. So that way, if you're motivating the reason that what I'm going to achieve, what I want to achieve is best facilitated by this university and why it's so, that is perhaps like a very good example of how the SOP should be. So you start out from your experience and how the story started from you and how the university fits into your story.
Sarthak has, I think Sarthak Kanodia has like too many questions to you guys. I think it's just popping up questions. Can I go for a research degree even if I want to work in the industry, or is it better to go for a better professional MS degree straight away? I think Rohan, you want to take that?
Sure. To be honest, it doesn't make any difference at all. You could, if you can crack a job interview, you can crack a job interview. No one's even true. You could. I'm a product manager and I major in HCI. Everyone else in my program is a designer or a UX researcher. Like, this never came up during my conversation. Why would I major in HCI? Why would I major in anything else? If you can crack your interviews for a job, it works out. Yeah, I think that's all I have to add there.
Okay, cool. Anybody else wants to add anything? Or probably everybody else is still in school, I guess. Rohan is the only one who's like done with it. Okay, so Sarthak, I hope you got something out there. Okay, Mandeep has question: what if we are able to get some scholarship or RShip at some not so famous university? Should we go for it, or we should still apply for top tier? I think this question is multiple times it shows up. So why don't some of you guys take it? Which is, should I look for, so to say, scholarship and RShip, or if I have admits in schools, should I go to a low-ranked university with a scholarship or a better-ranked university without a scholarship? Yeah, Sarana.
So a lower rank school which probably gives out a lot of TAs and RAs is probably extremely useful, but you also want to make sure that you have a couple of advisors that you can work with, because at the end of the day, if you're doing your master's program and you end up like not doing anything in those 2 years, that would really like affect you if you want to apply for a PhD, or even if you want to apply for a job. You need to show something, right? If you think that there are professors or advisors that you want to work with, even if it's a lower ranked university, it's still fine. So my point being, if you want to go for the TA or the RE-ship, it's okay to go for the lower ranked university. as long as you identify advisors that you can work with.
Okay. Amod, did you want to add anything, Amod? Okay, cool. Anybody else wants to take that? Okay, let's move on. Mandeep's about the scholarship. Okay, Ramya YS. It was mentioned that we should not restrict ourselves in the SOP with one field. Wouldn't mentioning a couple of fields which are considerably apart reflect an undecisive mindset? Wow. Okay, did you guys get the question? Yeah, okay. Anybody wants to take that? Which is basically, should my SOP be very clear cut? This is what I want, or should I just be? Meaning, our question is, if I don't be very precise, would it look undecisive and it would go against me? Yeah, Mansi.
So I think your major area of interest, like your big domain, should be consistent. So, for example, if you want to work in data science, then it should be consistent throughout the SOP. But it should not be very too much specific, as in you should not write, I want to work in only machine translation in NLP, or I want to work only in sentiment analysis, something like that. It should be considerably open to experiment from your side, and when someone is reading your SOP, it shouldn't look as if you won't take up the university if you do not get these professors, or you want to work only in these particular fields. Your SOP, especially for a general master's CS program, it should reflect that you have a considerable knowledge and you are interested in working in areas of CS which are not restrictive to this field. Because I have also seen a lot of students changing their areas after coming to masters. It happens a lot. So I mean, you should be ready for that in your SOP. Like, you should, maybe one or two line won't harm, mentioning that I am open to other fields also, not even if fields, other projects also. But yeah, it should not be too restrictive.
Okay. Okay, cool. So I know some of you. I think Vedant just dropped out. He had a meeting starting at 10:30 IST, so he dropped out. I don't know what happened to Ashwin, but we can. I'll check with him whether he's coming back. Okay. Some more questions. So we stopped at Ramya. Okay. So Soham Deshmukh, how much does GRE score affect admissions for masters? I know it depends on the school to school, but what was your experience? I think it's. Let's connect this to another question. Also, I think Dheeraj has, which is quite interesting. Which is to say that any particular mistakes you made during your application process or something you wish you did different. I think it's the same question as where we started, which is what did you guys do? But can we flip it and say that, okay, what would you have, if given a chance, what would you fix? Let's take if it was two things. Anybody taking? Yeah, Rohan.
I mean, if I had to change one thing about my MS applications, I would have probably in my first or second year made a list of the top 3 schools I want to get through and made it a point to have worked with professors from those schools during my undergrads, to have those people as one of my recommenders during my application process. I mean, that's probably the only thing I would have changed. Otherwise, you're always going to have things to change. You're always going to, in retrospect, be all wiser.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we can play only with the cards we have in hand, right? I mean, what can we do with it?
Yeah.
Right. You just said that you will work with professors from that school. Imagine people who don't have professors from those schools, or imagine you yourself don't have even far-fetched people who have gone to that school, right? So you can't do anything with it, right? That's how life is. So you got to figure out something. Okay. Anybody else? What would you fix? Yeah, Amod.
I think so. I said this before, right? Like while choosing your list of schools that you want to apply to, be wise. Do not just blindly go for top 10 or top 15 schools, because that's what I did, and frankly, I was very surprised by my decisions. So I think it's important to be smart about it, and not just be passionate. For example, if you have a very strong application and you feel that you can get through Stanford or Berkeley, then only apply for both of those schools. Otherwise, do not apply to Stanford, Berkeley, CMU, UIUC, like every school by line and line. Because if you get into Berkeley, then you will go to Berkeley, right? Or if you get into Stanford, you will go to Stanford. So there's no point of applying to every school that you see is like as good, because all of them are good at some level. And yeah, that's one thing that I would have told myself back then, that do not just blindly go to top 50 and just apply, because
And
yeah.
interesting point, right? You're just adding more money to wealth to those institutes, I guess, if you're paying for it, right? So you're just sending the applications. Yeah. So, but I think that's a valid point. I think I've written it in my FAQ also, that start thinking about these universities not per rank but as a band. You can just keep a different
in one
kinds of
category.
bands, category of people. School. These categories are not very directly correlated with safe, moderate, and dream. They're different, meaning you can take up 100 schools and put it into like 10, 15 buckets, right? Keep that buckets as the way to make your decision, rather than saying, oh, I'll just take this university ranking, and ranking being my decision make. Because see, I think there are people, I mean, I've started respecting these things more now. It's that we don't give so much of respect to non-technical things, which is weather conditions, right? Closeness, proximity to, meaning it can be the opposite also, proximity to people whom I know well, right? I want to stay and I don't want to stay. I don't want to go to a place where my sister lives. I don't want to go to a place where my uncle lives, right? Or I want to go to a place where I think these are non-technical reasons, but sometimes these should be your reasons also to make judgments, right? Why not, right? At the end of the day, it is a choice that you're making. So the way I feel about this university, at the end of the day, you're going to decide on what alum you are going to be called as. Meaning, what best can you do to maximize that, right? Which place will you go and be happy about saying that, oh, I am alum from so and so. I think that's good. Okay, so let's take a couple of and then we can stop. Chinmay Sonar, GPA for masters versus PhD. Does PhD demand very high GPA? Unfortunately, people who are doing PhDs are not on the call. But let me take. So does PhD demand very? No, I don't think so. Meaning, for PhD admissions, the admissions process itself is slightly different, right? As Rohan said earlier, make good connections. I think for PhD admission, it's even more stronger, right? You've got to have good people whom you know. You got to have people whom you would have attended some conferences, or people showed up in your institute, or people were in the city giving a talk. You should go definitely meet them. I think these are also, I find these are also non-technical things which students at some point in time don't realize how important they are, right? Meaning open lectures people give lectures in some industry or in university. Try and attend it. Try and say hello to people. You don't know what kind of so to say connection you will make, not only to the speaker, right? Others who are attending, other faculty who may be inside the room may be helpful. So I think PhD admissions is slightly a different ballgame, where it is not so particular about your GPA. Okay. Or I should have said the other way around also. I'm the only one who's qualified to answer people who are on the call now. Okay, Arpit Bharajwaj, thanks for organizing. Currently, I'm working in Uber as a software engineer. Wow, Arpit, we should ask you for some favors. I wanted to know if masters is a good option for an year experienced students or a PhD. I won't like to move to academia, though I like to switch to applied scientist role as compared to current. Okay. So again, given that it's PhD, let me try to take this. So I think, why don't I give it to others? So what decisions you guys who are on the call, PhD versus masters? Yeah, Varun, you've not been speaking for some time. Why don't you take it? And then Amod will come to you. Yeah, Varun.
So in the PhD versus master's space, so I'd say that if the goal is towards moving towards industry research, it's not like you definitely require a PhD to be able to do that research, because I know a lot of my peers and I know a lot of people in masters itself who go on to do industry research a lot. So I'd say that it obviously is going to matter what amount of research you have done during your graduate degree. But then I'd say if in a PhD versus master scenario, I'd say go for a PhD only if you're actually interested to keep a whole 5 years commitment to it. And actually, if you're like highly interested in what you'd want to research on, more than actually trying to look at what the next step is for the PhD. So definitely masters, there are a lot of master's degrees and avenues in masters for research that will change into like applied scientists or research scientists in industry also. Lots of opportunities are there.
Yeah.
So in my experience, I completely disagree with Varun here. So in my
it is good to have these disagreements also, right?
so
Earlier I
so
disagreed with Saravana. So
so
yeah.
in my experience, it's been completely different. So if you want research as your career, masters is not going to take you anywhere. That's pretty much how the research job market I saw in US is, which was very disappointing for me. The thing is that after masters, you would probably have your opportunities to again be a software engineer or choose something along the roles like along the lines of data science. But to be in these special positions of like research scientist or like applied scientists on like good teams that are going they're doing like exciting projects, you need to be a PhD. um, I personally, like, at least in my area in IoT and systems, I try to pursue a lot of these research opportunities uh, in the industry, and all of them would just blatantly tell me that most people working on our team on these research project PhDs, and that's what we expect. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because I read that US produces 65,000 PhDs per annum, and I'm pretty sure there are not as many industry research jobs in Uber, Facebook, or Google or whatever. So but what can happen is that you can join these positions and you can eventually make your way to positions like research engineers or applied scientists or something like that. It might differ a little bit in terms of data science, because research in data science and data science roles, they kind of merge. But if you want to be in like a core research position, or have like research as a career, then you need to go for a PhD. And again, the way I see PhD is not a 5-year commitment; it's actually a 20-year commitment. Even after you graduate, PhD is more like a lifestyle that you choose. That after you graduate, you go on to do research until you establish yourself as like a good researcher. So I wouldn't say that PhD is just I want to do research, so should I go for master's or PhD? If you want to do a PhD, then you should probably just have a very focused research-oriented career after you do that. So
Oh, amazing. So when I'm sitting in, sometimes I'm super amazed to see the responses by you guys, right? Wow, these are kids like who were undergrads like few years before in triple IT, and then they're like giving this gyan about PhD is a lifestyle. Make your choice.
no, I really
No. I
struggled
think
through
it's pretty
this.
cool. Even when Rohan answered this question, right? Pretty much doesn't matter. If you can crack an interview, that's all it matters, right?
Right,
So
right,
these
yeah.
kind of meaning experiences that you have gone through is what probably you saw in the summer internship that you were exploring. You must have realized that, boss, it's not going anywhere. If I want to have a research career with a master's, that's, I think, pretty cool. Yeah, I think that's why I think my experience also sometimes is outdated, right? That's why talking to you guys makes sense. Saruna, you have to keep it short, but
So,
yeah, Saruna, go on.
online answer is that if you want a master's and you want an applied scientist role, you need very, very specific experience in your master's. So, if you want an applied scientist role, just do a PhD.
Okay, so that's another perspective. Okay, cool.
Yeah, just to like complete that loop, what I was trying to say,
Yeah.
it's not impossible. It's just that it's very, very hard.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Arpit Bharadwaj, I hope you got something. Okay. So here is let's keep this as a last question. So Dheeraj asks, how much does the rank of a college affect opportunities after graduation? Does a lower rank necessarily mean lower opportunities? Let's do first with Rohan. I think Rohan is the one who has done through this process. Rohan, and then we can go to Varun. Everybody, I think this is the last question. All of you can take a shot at this or give some summary of it, and then we can stop. Yeah, Rohan.
So I would say yes and no. This is a very who's reviewing your resume kind of a question. Like, some people do not give enough. Okay, let me go. Let me take a step back. Yes, because good good schools, great schools means good network, great school access to people who are working at all these companies, have access to these opportunities. It's like how Google says we do our majority of our hiring through referrals. It's like good people are friends with good people, great people know great people. So yes, but no, because this also really depends on who's reviewing your resume when you're applying for a job or any other opportunity. It's totally biased by who's reviewing your application and your resume. A lot of times. Also, a lot of times in my team at Yelp, whenever people get resumes from Indian students who've done their undergrad in India, they're not familiar with the education landscape there. So they would come to me with the resume and wondering how good that school is or wondering how good that program is. Now, how good that program is and how good that school is also biased, in my opinion. So luck plays a lot of factor here. So it truly depends.
Yeah, cool. Varun, I thought you wanted to answer.
Yeah. So the question was, what role does the rank of the undergraduate college play for grad admissions, right?
No, Varun. The question is about where I graduate. How does it help to, where do I go with it? So
Okay.
It's the next step. It's the next step after you graduate from CMU.
Okay. So in that sense, I'd say I agree with Rohan, and to add to that, also I'd say that sometimes it just helps that in addition to the network, it definitely doesn't help towards getting a job, but it definitely helps to make people look at your profile once again, because of it's basically trying to say that based on how well previous people have performed, like he was saying, the alumni, that basically gives a sense of how much potential or what they can expect out of someone. So that's possibly one factor they may consider.
Yeah, Amod.
I think my take on this would again be the bucket thing, right? Like different schools are probably divided in different tiers or buckets, and being on a better school might not limit opportunities in any sense, because like if we are talking about industrial opportunities, all of these companies usually come to most like all these career fairs, so you do get an opportunity to like present your resume and like talk to them. After that, if they really I mean, when you go to these big companies, I think you see students from all over the US, be it like universities that you've never heard of, or even like Stanford or Berkeley or anything like that. So in that sense, I don't feel it matters a lot, the rank. So it's not like choosing something in top 15 is going to kill your opportunities as compared to top 5. I'm pretty sure all the good companies are going to visit all of these campuses, and you will have an opportunity to talk to them. But again, what goes on at the back of it, like do they really prefer students from top universities, is something that I don't think we can answer as such.
You can answer it after a few years, it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Mansi, did you want to add anything to this question, or in general, summarizing what we can stop in a couple of minutes?
Yeah, I'd say that location matters, I think, more than the rank of school. What I like saw in career fairs is that you'd see a lot of students from California universities studying in California and joining companies like companies in Bay Area and San Francisco. I mean, that's not true always, but it definitely like helps if you are in California and you are applying to the places there. So my experience from career fairs was one of the things Amod said, that any data science research role or any research role, they won't even talk to you if you are a master student. Like even in big career fairs, the HR would say, okay, we have software engineering roles for you. If you're not a PhD, like I don't think you should apply. It's very competitive. So if you are going for a research role in industry, you got to have PhD. Like there is no two ways about it, and I think the location helps.
Okay. So, Varun, I think Shwetanshu has a question. What you kind of reframed for the last question. Let's take this one, which is if one's undergrad is not from an institute of note, how does the application stand a chance of being evaluated, given that everyone has an LOR from a notable professor?
Okay.
Let's do the first part. Yeah. So how does it matter if I'm not from one of those, so to say, ranked university from India to send my application?
Okay. So so what I feel is that the ranking which we have done is something that's India specific. So over there, in graduate schools, what matters the most is that they will basically see how a person taken from your college has performed previously. So in that way, it helps if there are people who have already, who are your seniors and who have done work. So it, more than saying that the rank of the college matters, it's more about saying how the people who they've taken from your college has performed when they came here. And there's also the issue of the cold start problem, right? That is, you're probably one of the first few who are applying from your university also. So that's when things get a little more, at least I feel in the admissions committee, it gets a little more unclear, where they see how they look at it on an individual case by case basis. But if you already have alumni who have gone to that university, they basically see their performance and how, and based on that, they gauge how the university is also.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. It's more like the alums who went from that school. Okay. Anybody else wants to take this ranked university? Or since Vedant is back, Vedant, there was a PhD question. So if you can, I think there are two short ones. Does GPA for masters versus PhD, does GPA matter for a PhD application?
I think honestly, if you've completed a master's in that time before you apply for the PhD, I really don't think it matters. Nobody really asks you about your GPAs once you've gone through that through grad school once, so that doesn't matter. I think as far as applying straight through undergrad goes, it matters, but going over to like broadly how applications work is that it's okay if you don't have a very stellar GPA, but you've got a good GRE to make up for it. So it's like a balancing act. So I don't think you should like. Very few schools have very hard cutoffs on GPAs. I think some schools have them, but most of them don't. Especially for PhDs, if your research output is good, or you can like somehow prove that you have a promising potential there, then that should be more than enough.
Okay. Cool. Do you guys have anything to summarize? Otherwise, we'll wrap up. Thanks, everyone, for joining the and asking questions. I hope we covered all the questions that was asked. And thanks to you guys. Thanks to Ashwin, Amod, Mansi, Rohan, Sarvana, Varun, and Vedant. Different time zones, different parts of the world. And thankfully for this daylight saving thing also. It looks like Ashwin also had the problem of daylight saving thing, and that's when he missed calculated what time the call was going to be. So that's good. Thanks for joining. Have a good day, guys, and thanks everyone for joining and asking questions. The video is going to be online on YouTube, so in case if you guys want to go look at it, please feel free to look at it. Thanks. Bye bye.